Thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. A Glimpse of the Kingdom can remain free because of generous donors like you. If you'd like to donate, feel free to do so online, or you can send payments through Facebook Messenger. Don't forget to tell your friends about it so that they can enjoy this ministry as well. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any podcasts.
You can listen to my daddy every single day, like in the gym, in the car, or just at home. Glimpse of the Kingdom is awesome!
Hello, and thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I am David Pendergrass. I received an email not long ago from Kevin, and Kevin asks this. He says some kind things about my podcast, and then he says, some time ago you had mentioned reading the book God and the Afterlife, which I ended up reading recently. It was a very thought-provoking book. I wonder what your thoughts are on some of the aspects in the book. Why are the vast minority of near-death experiences are negative or hellish? Wouldn't you expect it to be more common? Why are people who are not Christian or not religious having these experiences of going to heaven and meeting God? Finally, and most disturbing for me, was the number of people coming back from these experiences who have had received information that is in many cases less than Orthodox Christian teaching, and in some cases certainly not Christian at all. Examples from the book include reincarnation, universal salvation or reconciliation, and pre-existence of the soul. And then he says some nice things. Kevin, these are great questions. I've wondered the exact same questions. I don't have probably very good answers, but I'll tell you what I think about it. One is, I've also wondered why there are a minority of near-death experiences of negative or hellish. I have. The answer to that is, I don't know why. I don't know why that's the case. I don't know why that's a minority, of course. God certainly hasn't revealed that to me. I do know that I have read some and I've heard some. One that immediately comes to mind is a guy named Howard Storm, not Howard Stern, the interviewer. Not Howard Stern. Howard Storm, as in a storm outside, S-T-O-R-M. He was an atheist professor, and he died and had a hellish experience and came back and was no longer an atheist. Now he's an evangelist. That's really amazing. In fact, there's all kinds of interviews online on YouTube for Howard Storm. Anyway, people like that do have them. And the answer is, I don't know. I wonder if God doesn't allow these as many times as he does because at the same time it might change a person. But it seems to me that God typically doesn't want to scare the hell out of people. He wants to attract the heaven. He would attract them to heaven. So I wonder, you would think if everyone who died ever and came back all experienced hell would go, man, I'm never going back there again. I'll tell all my cousins. Maybe I'm just wrong that he wouldn't do that, but it seems to me if that were the case, it would be much more of a punishment-based, fear-based system. And while I have no problem whatsoever saying that we should be afraid of God's judgment, because we should be, that's exactly what Jesus said, don't be afraid of the one who can kill your body, but the one who can throw your body and soul into hell. Though that's not the dominant way I perceive of God, there's nothing wrong with being afraid of being judged, because I don't want to be judged. I need mercy and grace. So having said that, I don't know. I would just guess about that, and I wish there were more of them. Because I would love that'd be interesting to me. Your second question is, why are people who are not religious having these experiences of meeting God? Well, see, to that I've wondered that too, except for me, it seems pretty obvious. The reason why they're meeting God is because God is real, and it makes a lot of sense that they would meet absolute reality. When you say they're going to heaven, in that sense, I'm not sure if I would say they're going to heaven. They're having heavenly or supernatural experiences. I'm not convinced they're going to heaven in the final sense. What I mean there is heaven, the Greek word, and also from the Hebrew too, but the Greek word for heaven can mean skies or it can mean the heavenly realms. And so sometimes you'll say, like the heavens declare the glory of God in the Psalms. They mean the skies, not where God lives. So sometimes, to be real clear, what I'll say is instead of saying going to heaven, I'll say in the heavenly realms, or I'll say in the world to come. Now that distinction, that's how Jews would say it. That means when the new heaven and new earth is made, right? Isaiah 65, Revelation 21, that there's a new heavens and new earth. That's when people get a resurrected body. If that's what you mean by heaven, then I don't think they're going there. I don't think anybody who's ever died is in that place yet. I think the new heavens and new earth don't exist yet. I think they'll be made, or they're being prepared, or we don't have access to them until Judgment Day for everybody. But I do think these people are having some kind of heavenly experience and meeting God. But because why? Because God is the ultimate reality. But secondly, because it seems to be the case, He wants them to be changed. It's a good deal. Reminds me of the woman that she was on Today's Show with the guy who wrote the book, God in the Afterlife, and she was basically an atheist and died and met God. She said, I sat on his lap, and he said, it's time for you to go back. And she said, no, I work with cancer kids all the time, and I don't want to go back. Like, she was making a case for it. Like, no, I don't deserve to be taken, sent back. And he says, no. So, she's debating God, and God says, have you ever loved anybody there like you've felt loved up here? She said, well, no, of course not. I can't do like that. She goes, he said, you can do better. Well, see, and then she goes back and changed her life forever, so she does better. And now she's a theist. And it's amazing how these kind of experiences, they're not just a nebulous, cloudless, out there in the sky, blah, blah, by and by. She meets a being who commands her to do better. And it's not her mom or dad. It's someone, she said, I know it was God. He held me. So things like that, my response is, it seems to me, because those are the two reasons why. One is because God's the ultimate reality. And if God wants to allow a person into his presence, he sure can. And then it seems to me why he would do that. Well, he wants them to do better. A lot of those stories are that way. They'll come back, of course, better. The last one is what I really can resonate with, and that is the disturbing amount of people who have experiences that don't jive with biblical understanding or Orthodox Christianity. To that, I would say a few things. One is, I don't know what to say about those that are different. When I realize when I read those stories and God in the Afterlife and the book afterward, he's written 2 books now and all that, and the interviews I've seen online, is that the vast majority do not talk about reincarnation and so forth. The vast majority are not. They're in the small minority. The second thing is, when the people usually say that, they don't say, I met God or I met Jesus, and as far as I remember, as far as my memory might fail me here, but I don't remember anybody saying, I met Jesus, and Jesus looked like this and did this, and then he told me really I was reincarnated. But rather what people say is they had some experience and they had an awareness. And I'm fine with people thinking they had a belief system or thought, or they realized this is what I really believe, because they can have their beliefs. What I care about is if they're claiming that Jesus said something. So I guess what I'm saying is the belief that you're reincarnated is false. They can believe that if they want. They can have an experience that they interpret it and they come back and say, this really taught me that I'm one with the universe and everybody's connected and we all get reconciled and doesn't matter. Or I remember now that my soul's been here forever. Well, to that I'd say is, well, you're just mistaken, because I believe Christianity is true, and that means that must be false, which means your interpretation of those death experiences are false. That's what I would have to say. If the vast majority of near-death experiences were the opposite, were over and over and over and over and over, they met this green creature named Bob, and Bob said, no, we are reincarnated and going on. But I'd say, man, that's really intriguing. I'd really have to call that into question. But that's not what happens with the vast majority of other people who have experiences that seem to fit what we would expect from God. So that's all I can say about that. I wish we didn't have anybody who ever said anything different from the Bible. But what's striking to me is how much it does jive with what I expect to find. And as far as it's universal salvation and so forth, well, maybe that's true. Maybe it is at the end of it all, God says, come on in. Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think that's the biblical picture. But that's different from, this is my own view, of course. To me, that's very different from saying that we have some people who meet Muhammad, some people sit down with Moses, some people sit down, they're Hindus, some people have met Ganesh and Shakti, the Hindu gods, and they realize Hinduism really is true. That's not what we have. Over and over and over and over the stories go that they meet angelic beings, and almost always they don't talk to them. They just, I know who exactly they are. They're there to help me, and I feel that I know that. I just know what everything about me knows there. Well, that's what Jews and Christians have been saying for centuries. For centuries, Jews and Christians have been saying that when you die, angels will meet you. Well, that's what happens. That's in the Bible, and that's what an experience. And then over and over and over, atheists and non-believers meet Jesus. People who have no knowledge of Jesus meet Jesus. Not every time, but they can. And having said that, I have no problem thinking or believing that God would shape a person's experience to help them feel at ease and peace. For example, I have no problem, logically I might say, God can do whatever he wants to do. I'm just saying theologically and logically, I don't have any problem with God allowing a child to see the heavenly realms as a big zoo with unicorns and horses and rainbows, because it's the most majestic, phenomenal kind of experience they could imagine. But if I were to die and come back, maybe I don't experience a cosmic zoo. But at the same time, I know it's not the world to come, because the new heavens and new earth, as far as I know from the Bible and from reality, it's not existed yet. He's preparing a place for us, and so we've got to wait for that to happen. So wherever people go, it is a heavenly realm, but it's not the final resting place. And it seems to me God has the right to allow a person to experience something that is still true, as long as they meet a person and so forth, and then allow them to come back and talk about it. But I'll say this last thing, and I've said this, I think, in another podcast, and I've said it in my book as well. I think I did. And if I didn't, I should have, because I still have the same view. And that is, religious experiences, near-death experiences, cannot and must not trump what the New Testament says. And certainly not the teaching of Jesus. Jesus' teaching is top priority, top bedrock, or on the bottom you might say bedrock, foundation, ground zero. Everything else has to be interpreted through that lens. But if it fits, even if it fits basically, I'm fine with accepting it as actual data, as actual evidence. And I think the vast majority of these they do fit into that category. So I wish I had more answers for you, brother, but that's the best I got. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I really do hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you'll listen more. If you want more, go to davidpendergrass.com. There are tabs at the top that let you have access to all the podcasts I've recorded, to sermons I've done, books I've written. They're all there at davidpendergrass.com. You can also check me out on Facebook, facebook.com/glimpse of the kingdom, facebook.com/glimpse of the kingdom, and also look at my Twitter feed at glimpse the kingdom, or at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass. There's tons of ways to reach out. I hope you will. Send me your questions, send me your comments. If you'd like to support the ministries of Glimpse of the Kingdom, you can also find ways to give online on davidpendergrass.com. If you'd like for me to come and do some consulting, check out my website, davidpendergrassconsulting.com, and I'll be happy to come out and speak to your organization and help and train any way I can. God bless you. See you online.